Hello and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. Today's podcast number 1642. The topic is Q&A and the title is Balancing Your Needs with Helping Others. Oof. That can definitely be a challenge. So I wanted to read a message I received on Instagram, and it was from a personal trainer who was having some issues with that, with balancing their needs and helping other people. So I figured I'd read through their message and then we'll kind of get through the thoughts of it. Okay. It says, "Hello, Rob. I am a personal trainer and private gym owner in Arizona. One of my clients told me about your podcast. I have listened to a few episodes and I am hooked. I love the variety of content you cover and how sincere you are wanting the information to be both informative and helpful." Yay, thank you. "Too often I struggle with trying to balance every aspect of my life that I feel I am never making progress." Yeah. But one aspect I've taken away from your podcast is to keep an eye on the minimums, as you've referred to them. The most basic things that make the biggest impact. Yes. I am currently struggling with something I thought may make a good podcast topic, since you mentioned you also work with other trainers. I am struggling with balancing my own needs while trying to manage all of my clients' needs. Yes. I have competed before and would love to compete again, but at the moment I am struggling to even do the minimums for general physical and mental health, let alone to be able to do the level of effort required to compete." Yes, this is a very common struggle. A lot of personal trainers struggle with that. I wondered, with everything you seem to do with being a trainer and business owner as well as having family demands, how do you manage your own needs? Any insight you could give would be greatly appreciated. Also, I have picked up 2 new clients recently and have earmarked their payments to go towards working with you in the future. Yay! I'm looking forward to working with you if you have space available. Thank you. Awesome. Well, thank you very much to the person that reached out. I really appreciate messages and hearing from everybody. It's really motivating to know people are listening and getting benefit from the podcast. So thank you very much. So this struggle is very, very, very common, and it's definitely common among personal trainers, but it's common with everybody. You know, we all try to do what we think that we need for our life and our goals, but yet we also have everyone else in our life that we're trying to help, and it can be overwhelming with feeling like, am I doing enough for myself, but do I feel selfish? You know, it's interesting is we want stuff, we want time, energy, resources for our needs, but then the second we get it, we start to feel selfish. And it's just like, oh, it's a wicked little vicious little cycle there. But I did do a past podcast, number 955. It was a mindset podcast titled "Self-Care is Not Selfish," so you can definitely check that one out. And it was back in May of 2021, so it's been a little while, so it's good to touch on it a little bit again. And then also I did a podcast, it was number 104, so way back in the beginning. It was a mindset podcast titled "Whoops, Be More Selfish," and that was back in 2018. So we've touched on this a little bit, but it can be very challenging to do enough for yourself while doing everything for everyone else. And then one aspect that I know personal trainers struggle with is helping other people is also your business. It's how you get paid. So it has even added pressure as to why you might prioritize it over your own needs, which continues that cycle of, feeling like you're not getting enough. But then once you feel like you try to do enough for yourself, not only do you feel selfish, but you also are wondering, like, am I missing out on financial benefits? If I take one less clients, that way I can train more, I just lost money. So not only am I helping one less person, which doesn't feel good, but I'm also losing money. And, okay, so I get time to take care of myself, but what am I getting from that? Am I going to get increased business from that? Yeah, sure, I might feel a little bit better, but is that going to make up for what I just lost? I just didn't help someone else, so I feel guilty. I have more time for myself, which makes me feel selfish, and I lost money. So it's like, oh my gosh, the layers of crap you have to navigate is pretty intense. But I wanted to touch on just some of the things I think through, and just give like kind of areas of thought, and hey, hopefully that can spark some help. So the first thing is to know my minimums. I've talked about this before in a couple recent podcasts, is just to understand, okay, what's the least that I need to do to make sure that I'm not falling behind. So we have a podcast, 1547. It's a mindset podcast titled Minimize Stress by Doing the Minimum. And that's where I touched on this concept of minimums. So it sounds, funny. I like the title is, minimize stress by doing the minimum. So in a sense, like minimize your stress by doing the least amount. And what's interesting is that's actually helpful, because by knowing what's the least amount you need to do, then you only have to do that. So, like, for example, with nutrition, a lot of the trainers I work with, they're very familiar with nutrition tracking because they do it with their clients. But even just anybody, anybody struggling with this, calories, being consistent in your calories. We have podcast number 1232. You can find all of our podcasts, by the way, on our website. We have a podcast player on the website that goes back a couple hundred podcasts, and then there's actually instructions on how to find older podcasts. But you can go to our website and find the podcast player. But also for podcast number 1232, you can go to our free nutrition education page, and the very first thing on that page is titled Create Your Own Nutrition Program, and it's a document you can view or print that shows the podcast and a breakdown of how to figure out your calories, your protein, your meal timing, all the things that would be the minimums. So if you want to know what your minimums are for nutrition, it's on our website, www.brittlirongym.com. Click on Free Nutrition Education, then click on the document Create Your Own Nutrition Program. Okay, so that'll teach you the minimums. The minimum is calories. That's the thing, is you have to be at least somewhat in the ballpark of consistency when it comes to calories. And like why that is well, you can learn more. There's also a podcast for that, 1131. It's a nutrition podcast titled The Need for Caloric Consistency. But that kind of, it ensures that you're getting enough energy, that your body doesn't, fall behind, and therefore your energy, your mood, and your recovery and everything goes to crap. You want to make sure you have enough calories coming in, but you also don't have highs and lows, which can actually increase body fat storage. So it's actually inconsistent eating that most people deal with when it comes to like why they have body fat. Most people have body fat from inconsistent eating, not overeating. We have a podcast 1615 that covers that. But most people struggle with these highs, lows, high variances from day to day. You have crazy energy differences, water retention differences. You are going to be gaining body fat even though you feel like you eat healthy all the time. What's actually happening is you're under eating, then you're overeating, then you're under eating, then you're overeating. So you're constantly like overcorrecting overeating. And you're overcorrecting it so much that it causes the next bout of overeating. And you're going to feel this pressure of always being mindful of what you eat. So you're going to think that you're following a diet, but it's actually just too variable to actually be effective. So calories is the most important, then protein content, then distribution. So again, you can go through that thing on the website, the Create Your Own Nutrition Program page. You can go through that information to know your minimums for nutrition. When it comes to training, that's a little bit different. I've helped people achieve amazing physiques at just 2 workouts a week. You can absolutely do that. If you like training, you can maybe, your schedule allows it, try to squeeze in 3, try to squeeze in 4. I own a gym, so my number of, how many workouts I think it requires for a good week is going to be sky high compared to everybody else's. And it's partly because whenever I first started working out, it was back when I was 15 years old, and I used exercise as a way to manage my mental and emotional health. So that's my me time. That's the time I invest into myself. There's a lot of importance on my workout time because it's the time I take for myself. So the number one rule in my gym is to not bother me when I work out. So I would rather lose the gym than lose my workout time. That's just the flat out truth of it. So I really love working out, and I really love helping people. But if I don't get to work out, I don't think anybody wants me around them. So it's not going to be the best version of myself, that's for sure. So I love working out, and it is what I consider as time that I invest into myself, emotionally, mentally, physically. I mean, just all the good stuff comes from that. So I like training. Like, I've trained every single day for years. I think I did a stretch of like 3+ years where I trained every single day. So for me, the more often I can train, the healthier I feel mentally and emotionally. So that's going to be a big thing. And then not only do we want to know our minimums for nutrition, minimums for training, but also just mental health. I mean, taking some time every day for quietness. I think parents would understand, business owners would understand. Very rarely do you get time to just creatively think. Well, very rarely do you get time to think. You're spending all day reacting to everything and going through the checklist of all the crap you have to do. There's very little free thought time in life. So that's also partly why I love my workouts and why I protect them so much, is because it is my creative thought. I have my best business kind of thoughts when I'm working out. And I know, like, in stretches of time with business, like, I've owned the gym now for 12 years. I've been a personal trainer, been paid to be a personal trainer for over 20 years now. But I've had Brutal Iron Gym for 12. And I remember, like, in the times when the gym was the most stressful and I was the most busy, I would travel back up to see family, my parents in Pennsylvania, in the early years of the gym. They now live down here in South Carolina with me. But I would travel to go to Pennsylvania, and the 8-hour drives, I would all of a sudden have these most creative thoughts, and I'd do these like voice to text to myself. And I mean, it was amazing because I never had time to breathe, never had time to think. So then all of a sudden, when I was forced to be in a car by myself for 8 hours, boom, everything opened up and had a really fun creative thought. So for me, I know protecting small amounts of time are very helpful. Like, I'll listen to podcasts while I do dishes or clean, because those are kind of mindless tasks. So I enjoy listening to something or learning something in the process. Every once in a while, when I feel overwhelmed, I'll go into the bathroom, turn the lights off, set my alarm for 3 minutes, and just be quiet. And just close my eyes, try to like breathe, and just take 3 minutes to myself. It's just you need those little mental check-ins every now and then. Like, I'll text jokes to friends because that just makes me feel good that somebody laughs, but it only takes a minute or two. So there's small things you can do that are like, okay, these are the minimums that, as long as I'm doing calories and protein for my food, I know I'm at least taking care of the baseline needs and possibly even moving myself forward, since I'm controlling those things. Training, I know if I get at least 2 days or 3 days or 4 days, whatever it is for you that you can fit into your schedule consistently, and you can set that as kind of like the goal. And then your mental health as well. So you want to know kind of what your minimums are. You want to kind of sit down, think them through. Like, we have that document for nutrition. So you want to kind of really go through and plan out what you think your minimums are. And then there's tiers, TIERS, levels of ways to meet those minimums. So there's a really good book called Atomic Habits. So if you haven't listened to that or read that book, absolutely 100% do it. And then there's I think Elastic Habits. There's a lot of really good books. but I know Atomic Habits is one of my kind of favorite books in the sense of giving you like what it would feel like are secrets for managing yourself. That's very, very helpful. So that's a really good one. There's a lot of other really good books. Yeah, Elastic Habits by Stephen Guise. Guise. That's a really good book. Really, really, really good book. So I would recommend that as well. Elastic Habits was a great book. And like I said, Atomic Habits is really good. There's a lot of other good books. Like I use Audible and listen to a lot of books while I'm working out or while I'm doing things throughout the day. James Clear, that's the author of Atomic Habits. James Clear, Clear. So those are two good ones. So start with Atomic Habits and Elastic Habits, and it'll dovetail from there. But what you want to know those books for is levels of efforts. So what this means is you know what your minimums are, but you're not going to want to do the minimum every day. Maybe some days you want to do a little more, and then other days it'll be tooth and nail to try to get the minimums. I know for my wife, yesterday was a really crazy, long, busy day for her. So we had to leave the house at I think it was 7, and we didn't get back home until 10 p.m., and when she got back home, she still had to do some kind of extra work call. There was some kind of thing they were putting on something, and she had to be present for it. I don't know. She has one of those job titles that you don't know what she does even after she tells you what she does. But there was something going on where they had to do this electronic process to get something uploaded into a system, and she was on that call. She also was trying to finish up this math stuff she's doing for grad school, and she has a current goal where she's trying to do 20 minutes of exercise every day. And we have an elliptical at our house, a Bowflex elliptical that has a vertical pattern rather than horizontal pattern, so it's really good for the lower glutes. And we have a cable stack machine. So she got home at 10, got jumped onto that call so she could be available for that call. She looked through the math stuff, did some math stuff, and then actually did her 20 minutes of workout. It was just crazy. And she showered. So she's crazy. She works all freaking day and still finds stuff to get in. But those are going to be the days where you're fighting to just do the minimums. And then there's going to be days where doing the minimums, you're like, okay, I can get them in today. I can have a good day. Boom, good. And then you have those days where you're like, well, I have a little extra time, a little extra energy, a little extra resources. Can I get above my minimums? And that's going to be very helpful. So planning out your tiers of effort, your levels of effort. What does my nutrition look like on the best day? What does my nutrition look like on an okay day? What does my nutrition look like on a crappy, horrible day? Same thing for training. Same thing for mental health. Kind of have a game plan of on the worst day ever, I'll at least do X, Y, Z. Maybe just X. Then on an okay day, maybe I'll do X, Y, Z. And then on the best day, I'll do X, Y, Z plus ABC. You want to have an idea of what those look like, because when life changes on you, you want to already know what to do. So maybe you're thinking it's going to be an okay day, and halfway through the day, it turns into a crappy day. You want to know what your crappy day minimums are. So that way, even though the day got away from you, you can still get in your minimums. But likewise, maybe it was an okay day, then something cleared on your schedule, and you're like, dang, I have a lot of extra time now. You want to already know what you would do with that time. So you already want to know, what does my best day nutrition, training, and mental health look like? What does my okay day, nutrition, training, and mental health look like? What does my crappiest day, nutrition, training, and mental health look like? Know those levels, so that way you're prepared and know exactly what to do before you get thrown into a situation that might not have been what you thought was going to happen. The third thing is to track your efforts. Pay attention to what you're doing, because if you pay attention to it, you can see trends, and that can be motivating because you can see how many days you've been consistent with something, but it also can be informative. Okay, if you find out, okay, every Monday I freak the hell out and I overeat, what am I doing that leads to Monday happening? Do I have a lot of stress over the weekend? Do I not eat enough maybe over the weekend? Do I overeat and all of a sudden I create all these cravings because maybe I'm under eating during the week? Maybe I mess up on Monday, so I under eat on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Then Friday I go out and have a little bit of fun with friends, feel super guilty on that, eat nothing on Saturday. Then I try to again starve myself on Sunday, and then Monday I freak out and overeat. So you want to start to see trends that are happening, and that would come from tracking your efforts. So that's very helpful to do as well. Then the other kind of stuff that's a little bit messy but very helpful is, what do you want to maintain other than yourself? So other than your training, nutrition, and mental health, what else do you want to balance in your life? What I mean by this is relationships. So if you're trying to balance your needs and helping others, relationships are going to fall in there somewhere. So if you're a trainer and you're thinking of others as clients, well, your needs could be as the relationships that you have. Whereas if you're not a trainer, maybe you see helping others as a relationship. What do you do for your significant other? What do you do for a family member? What do you do for a really close friend when they're in need? So one of the things that I like to do is I consider the book The 5 Love Languages. There's a really good book as well called Love and Respect. But those are two really, really, really good books. I've talked about them before, and I recommend them to people all the time. But The 5 Love Languages is really awesome because why I like that is I want to... it's kind of like hacking the system. I want to know to the people that I love the most how I can show love to them the most. Not everybody receives love the same way. So if you get me gifts, I'm just going to feel guilty because you worked really hard for your money and maybe I'm not going to use the gift. Because people try to surprise you with stuff and then you feel bad if you don't use the stuff. And it's like, damn it, why'd you give me a gift? so I get mad at people if they give me things because I'm weird. But I don't receive gifts well, as you can now tell. But some people love gifts, and they like that somebody thinking of them and spending money on them, is a huge sign of love. Some people like quality time. They just want to be in the same room with you. But some people hate that because it's like, well, why am I just going to sit here and do nothing? I could be doing things, and this is a waste of my life, and blah, 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 blah. So people experience love differently. And it's very helpful to know that because if you understand that, you can then use your efforts in the most efficient way to show them love. So rather than you going out and doing a bunch of things that don't mean that much to them, that's going to be unfortunate because it doesn't show love to them as well as you want, and it was a lot of time and energy on your part, and it just didn't come to anything. Didn't get what you wanted for it. So understanding the 5 love language is very helpful because your closest relationships, you want to say, okay, what are their love languages? Can I do 1 or 2 things a day that just let them know that I'm thinking of them, that I love them? And that way you can maintain that relationship. So it's the minimum of maintaining that relationship, right? Other relationships, maybe you have some people, they maybe not significant other, but a family member, so you might do 1 or 2 things a week that touch on their love languages. For others, maybe friends, or, somebody you're kind of close with, but they have their life and you have your life and you try to meet up as much as you can. You might just do 1 or 2 things a month. So maybe you shoot them a random text, or maybe you see something on social media and say, hey, I thought that you might find this interesting. I just wanted to send it to you. Those are awesome things. That lets people know that you are thinking of them, that you care about them. And those are kind of the minimums for relationships. So what you can think through is, okay, who are the people that I need to do 1 to 2 things a day? Who are the people I need to do 1 to 2 things a week? Who are the people I need to do 1 to 2 things a month? Put everybody in your life into a category and then just try it and see what happens. If you feel like, oh crap, I'm only communicating with this person once a week, but it seems like they might need a little more, then bump them up to something every day. Or if you have somebody every week and you're like, well, we're okay friends, I don't think I need to do something every single week. You can just do it once a month or twice a month, that kind of thing. So put everybody in your life that you want to have a relationship with in one of the categories, and then just track that and see what you're doing. So you can say, okay, for my significant other, do I track, like for Meredith, my wife, hers is words of affection and acts of service. So I actually pay attention to whether I do that every day. Like literally I have a tracker. So I track, because you'll be amazed, like when life gets chaotic, you can be with somebody every day, but it doesn't mean that you're necessarily doing those things for them. And you think to yourself, is like, oh, we spend all day together. Yeah, but are you doing the acts of service? Are you doing the words of affirmation? Like I like writing little notes and leaving in the bathroom in the morning for her. So it's one thing to tell somebody you love them, and that is a huge thing. But then to go that little extra step and make somebody a personal note, that's really cool. That's going to help drive it home. So it's good to track this in some way. If you have a friend, check and see, how often you texted them. If you haven't texted them in 4 weeks, it might be time to send them something. So it's good to know where people are on the frequency list, and then just kind of track that a little bit. finances. You probably want to maintain that. So not only do you have your nutrition training, mental health, not only relationships, but finances. So you want to look at what you spend and then rank your categories of what you spend based on the future you want to have, and put more where it has more meaning, put less where it has less meaning. Some people value more like mental health. So they might do more mental health things. So, for example, somebody might have an AMC movie membership, and they might go to a movie once or twice a week. And that's their time. Like, they just go and they enjoy a movie, and it kind of resets them. It gives them that quiet space away from the world. They get to kind of like just release into this fantasy world, which is nice. So it's emotional and mental health for them. So yeah, that can be, I don't know, I have a clue how much those things cost, but that could be money really well spent if that's how you have your emotional and mental health categorized. I know a lot of people, like one person I knew, they were sleeping on a blow-up mattress, but they had a gym membership. So they paid for a gym membership before they paid for a bed, because that was that level of importance for them. So it's helpful to know where your money's going. Like, I've talked to clients at times about Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University. Really love that. There's a lot of other kind of like ways to manage money as well. But having some kind of strategy, having some kind of awareness to where your money is going is super helpful. And then that way you can kind of rank what you're spending your money on. Like, I spend a little more on food than I need to, because I like certain foods and I like the quality of certain foods, and I eat a pretty large amount of food because I'm 280, like 70-some pounds right now. So I eat a lot of food, and I could definitely cut back on food costs, but then I might not enjoy my food as much. I might not then eat as much. My energy is going to be low. So it kind of like negatively impacts my life. So I'd rather spend a little bit more on food, but spend a little less on something else. Like, my wife makes fun of me because I'm a typical, what I'm assuming is like typical man, but all those stereotypes are all, kind of BS in some way anyhow. But like, I have one pair of jeans. I actually laugh because it's plural. So like, jeans is plural, but I feel like I should just be like, I have a jean. I don't even have a pair of jeans. I don't have two of these things. I have one jean. So, and that's all I need. I don't think I need more. So I'm sure she's going to break me down and make me get a second pair at some point, which is actually useful. But the point is that there are certain areas that I'll save money and certain areas that I'll spend money. And if I plan that out, I feel a lot more emotionally okay with that. So I feel less stress because I know where my money's going and I'm okay with where it's going. Then the last thing I'll touch on real quick is business. When you talk about business, whether it's work, like if you do work for someone else or you work for yourself, there's that 80-20 principle, that 80% of what you do, 20% of what you do gets 80% of the results. That's typically going to happen is you do a lot of stuff all day. But there's this core few things that give you the biggest results. In business, my goal is to find my 20 and make it my 80. That's the idea. Find the 20. Find the 20% that gives me 80% of my results. But then I'm going to do that 20% 80% of the time. So might leave you losing you in the math. But the idea is to find out what's giving you the biggest return in regards to financial security, financial return, but then also outreach. I've talked about this before, that I used to count helps. So how many times I helped someone every day, whether it was answered a question, put a smile on their face. So if I was super nice to somebody at the grocery store, like the cashier, and I asked them how their day was going, made a couple jokes with them, and they seemed to enjoy the experience beyond like a basic interaction, I counted that as a help. I helped make somebody's day a little better. And when I started counting that, I was like, I feel like I want this number to be bigger. I want that number to be bigger. So that was actually part of why I started the podcast, was I wanted a bigger helps number. And it was just something that was going to make me feel better about my life, is being able to have a greater impact into other people's lives. So that's something I've looked at, is what's the 20% that I do that makes 80% of the results. And then can I make that 20% my 80%? So towards that goal, I've tracked my time spent. Like, I've gone down and written down every 15 minutes of the day, what have I done for 15 minutes, like the last 15 minutes. And I've done that for like a week at a time. I've done that for a couple different like units of 3 to 4 days several times, and it's just really helpful to see where you're spending your time, so you can streamline everything a little bit and just get a little more bang for your buck throughout the day. So that way you can say, okay, I'm spending X amount of time per day doing this. If I'm spending 2 hours a day scrolling on Instagram, that might not be the best use of 2 hours. I might want to bring that number down a bit. Now, part of it can be challenging. If I'm a personal trainer, or if I have a fitness kind of goal, I might want to see what's out there in the world. What are people talking about? What are the hot button topics? How can I stay relative? I want to see equipment because I really like equipment. So it's just fun to see what are the new things out there. So there could be arguments to being definitely some good to the amount of time spent, but maybe instead of 2 hours, I cut it down to 1 hour and I still get all the benefits, but now I have an extra hour in my day. So that's the idea. It's kind of working on seeing where do I spend my time, what do I get for my time, and can I do it any more efficiently, or can I get more for it? That idea. So what I try to do is to cut out as much as I possibly can that doesn't directly help people, because typically when you help people, you're going to make money anyhow. So if there's something I'm doing that doesn't have direct impact on helping people, I try to reduce that as much as possible. I try to do things that I think have the biggest way to help people. If I can do something for 30 minutes that helps 1,000 people, rather than something for 30 minutes that helps one person, at this time in my life, I'm really consciously making the choice between those two. I love helping people, so I still do one-on-one type things all the time, but I have to make sure I get paid for that, because if I'm not getting paid for it, could I have been using that time to help thousands of people rather than one person? Or can I use that experience of helping the one person and turn it into 1,000? So, for example, if I help somebody one-on-one, can I then do a podcast about what we did, and then all of a sudden that was an investment of time to make the podcast, which then helps the thousands. So I'm very mindful, and I'm trying my best to help people. And if I count helps, that usually leads to the business growing. So that's a good focus. It's good to know kind of what makes you money, and then what helps people, and then finding the balance that gets the bills paid, gives you a quality of life that you want, but still helps people. So most people I work with have stress over the fear of what they're not doing. So they're disorganized in their efforts. And that's what's causing the stress. That's what's causing that feeling of uncertainty as to whether they're taking care of their needs versus being selfish. That it's helpful to organize your efforts and to know which efforts are making the greatest impact towards the future that you want. So you want to think through everything we've talked about and know your minimums and ensure that they're getting attention. And then fill in the rest when you can. I had a friend ask me one time, and this was a very good conversation. It's a very fun conversation. They were asking me about trying to get some training help. And it was interesting because, when I'm growing up, you just help, like what I was taught was you just help your friends. You help your family, you help your friends. You would just do it, right? You wouldn't ask for payment. And what I've found with my business is that doesn't lead to the best quality of help sometimes. So actually, by not accepting payment from people, I actually help them less. And what I mean by that was the friend and I were talking about is typically when I don't accept payment from somebody, they get help from me in the margins of my life. So once I've accounted for my needs for the day, my relationships, my clients, then whatever is left over, I would try to help them with. That's not a lot. There is not a lot in that margin right now. It's not. So they get the scraps of my knowledge, the scraps of my effort, the scraps of my friendship. But I don't want to give them scraps. That's not they're not a scraps type person to me. I want to show more for them and to them, but it might mean that we need to do a payment scheme, because if I'm getting paid for the time, then I include the time into my routine, and they get dedicated time. They get the best of me now. And a lot of my friends want to pay me. So they're like, dude, I want the best of you. I don't want the scraps. Please let me pay you. And that can be a challenge. So if you're balancing helping other people and making money, you might want to consider is it's okay to take the money, because then you can include them into your routine and you can give better of yourself to them. And, if they have the discretionary income and they have the money available, they're probably happy to give it, happy to support you, and they're happy to get the best of you rather than the best of someone else, because you won't take their money and you're only giving them scraps. So that's just something to consider. Okay. So help yourself first. That's the thing. Know your minimums, get them in, and then with the time left over, balance what you believe will lead towards the best future that you want. That's the idea. So help yourself first, hit your minimums, and then with everything left over, you balance the rest of what you'd like to do for yourself with your relationships, with your finance, with your business, with everything else you want. But you have to help yourself and hit your minimums first. That's the number one goal. Okay, number one priority. So you want to decide for yourself then, once your minimums are met and you have this, what do you do with the rest of your effort and time? Well, do you do greater effort into your nutrition and training? Or do you push harder and deeper into your relationships? That's a choice you get to make. Do you save more money, or do you spend more on self-care because you just want to kind of maintain and improve the health you have now rather than trying to catch up on your health later on? And that's a decision you have to make. So you have to decide what you want and then act on those wants. So again, most stress and anxiety comes from chaotic energy. Doing a lot, but not being certain as to what you're getting for what you're doing, and if what you're doing is actually the best. So plan your life. Think what is most important to you. What are the minimums for each of those things? And then account for them. Put them in your schedule. Build your life around them. You want to know what you're getting for what you're giving. If you know your minimums, if you're paying attention to the minimums of all areas, you're scheduling them, you're holding to them, you're tracking them, you're constantly trying to improve your adherence to them, you're going to feel a lot less anxiety, a lot less stress. And that's going to help you feel more contentment in the grind of life as you try to make the best life possible. Okay. So I hope this was helpful just to kind of talk through these thoughts, different areas. If anybody has any follow-up questions or you need anything, just email me. My email is brutalirongym@gmail.com. Awesome. Well, if you like our podcast, please share it. The more people we share it with, the more people we can help live their healthiest and happiest life, which is great, and that's the whole point of the podcast. So thank you to those who share the podcast. It really does help outreach. So, for example, the person that shared the podcast with their trainer here in Arizona, and now the trainer got to reach out, and hopefully they're going to be helped through the podcast. So I really appreciate everybody sharing the podcast. It means a lot to me, and hopefully it'll mean a lot to everybody you share it with as well. And then thank you to those who donate to support the podcast. We do have a high hosting cost every year, and there's just general upkeep costs and whatnot. So thank you for the donations that go towards some of that cost. You can donate on our website, www.brutalirongym.com. Even just $5 a month. It adds up and it does help. So thank you to those who do that. If you like the information we share in our podcast, you can find more from us on our social media channels. You can find us and follow us under the name Brutal Iron Gym on Instagram and YouTube. Cool. As always, I hope this was helpful, and thank you for listening.